Elon Musk just said something that got 68 million views in 4 days. He said you don't need to save for retirement anymore. He said the government should send every American a check, not a survival check, not a basic income, a high income. Enough, he claimed, for everyone to live in a penthouse if they want. And when people pushed back, when they called it delusional, he didn't retreat. He doubled down. AI and robotics will mean everyone can have a penthouse if they want. The output of goods and services will be several orders of magnitude higher than today's economy. What is the future you want? Amazing abundance seems the best to me. Before you decide whether Elon Musk is a visionary or someone who has lost touch with reality, you need to understand what he is actually arguing. Because it is not as simple as it sounds. And it is not as crazy as it sounds either. This is the story of the most radical economic claim being made by the most powerful person in the technology industry. And whether Musk is right or wrong, the forces he is describing are already in motion. Let's start with the claim itself. Musk is not talking about incremental productivity improvements. He is not talking about apps getting smarter or spreadsheets filling themselves in. He is describing a structural break, a rupture in how economic output is generated so fundamental that the entire logic of scarcity, which has governed human civilization since the beginning of recorded history, would no longer apply. Here is the core of his argument, stripped to its simplest form. For all of human history, the amount of goods and services an economy can produce has been limited by one thing above all others: human labor. There are only so many workers. Workers have only so many hours. They get sick, they get tired, they sleep. Even in the most efficient economy ever built, the ceiling on output has always been defined by the capacity of human beings doing the work. Musk is saying that ceiling is about to be removed. If you have AI systems that can think, plan, design, and manage, and humanoid robots that can physically build, assemble, deliver, and construct, the fundamental constraint on economic output disappears. You no longer calculate what an economy can produce based on how many humans are working. You calculate it based on how many machines are running. And machines, unlike humans, can run continuously, be replicated at scale, and become cheaper over time rather than more expensive. Musk put it precisely at Davos in January 2026. If you have ubiquitous AI that is essentially free or close to it, and ubiquitous robotics, you will have an explosion in the global economy that is truly beyond all precedent. Beyond all precedent. Not the Industrial Revolution, not the digital revolution. Something categorically larger than anything in history. He described how he thinks about economic output in this new world. Average productivity per robot, multiplied by the total number of operational robots. That is the equation. And if robots can be manufactured at scale, which Tesla's Optimus program is designed to do, then total global output becomes a function of manufacturing capacity. Not of population, not of birth rate, of how many units you can build and deploy. Under that model, the price of almost everything collapses. Not because of charity, because of basic supply and demand. If the supply of goods and services increases several orders of magnitude faster than the money supply, prices fall. Deflation becomes the natural outcome. And this is where Musk's penthouse claim starts to make a certain brutal mathematical sense. A penthouse today is expensive, not because the raw materials are mystically rare. It is expensive because labor is expensive, and housing production has not kept pace with demand. Now imagine construction robots that work around the clock, never stop, never unionize, never demand overtime, and get cheaper every year. The price of building falls dramatically. The scarcity that makes luxury housing a luxury begins to dissolve. Musk cited a specific reference point: the Iain M. Banks culture novels. They describe a post-scarcity civilization run by super-intelligent AIs where material goods are essentially free and humans spend their time on whatever gives them meaning. Banks wrote those books as utopian science fiction. Musk is describing them as an engineering roadmap. Now here is where the story gets complicated, because there is a version of this that sounds like paradise and a version that sounds like catastrophe. And right now, in 2026, we are standing exactly at the point where the two versions diverge. Let's talk about what is actually happening on the ground today. Challenger, Gray, and Christmas estimates that roughly 30,000 jobs have already been lost to AI in just the first months of 2026. And that number almost certainly understates reality, because most companies don't publicly attribute layoffs to automation. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei has said bluntly that AI could eliminate up to half of all entry-level white-collar jobs within 5 years, potentially driving unemployment as high as 20%. 20% unemployment in the world's largest economy. Musk's answer is universal high-income UHI, not UBI. Not a survival check, a high-income check. Government-issued, regular, to every American citizen. Universal high income via checks issued by the federal government is the best way to deal with unemployment caused by AI, he posted. When critics said flooding the economy with cash would cause inflation, Musk had a specific answer. AI and robotics will produce goods and services far in excess of the increase in the money supply, so there will not be inflation. Inflation is ultimately the ratio between money supply and economic output. If output grows faster than money, prices fall. It is a coherent argument. But coherent and inevitable are not the same thing. Daron Acemoglu is an MIT economics professor and Nobel laureate. His estimate: AI will boost the economy by approximately 1% by 2035. Not orders of magnitude, 1%. His deeper argument is this: even when technology genuinely creates massive wealth, it does not automatically distribute that wealth. The Industrial Revolution created enormous aggregate prosperity and also child labor, urban poverty, and a century of brutal inequality before the gains were broadly shared. Technology's gains flow first, and most powerfully, to those who own the technology. Sanjeev Sanyal, economist and member of India's Economic Advisory Council, replied to Musk's post directly, calling his claims so wrong and arguing that universal high income would simply bankrupt any government that attempted it. And there is a structural question that Musk's abundance argument doesn't fully answer. Who owns the robots? If the robots are owned by Tesla, Nvidia, and a handful of technology corporations whose shareholders are overwhelmingly already wealthy, the productivity explosion concentrates its gains at the top. The price of some goods may fall, but the actual economic surplus, the wealth generated by the machines, flows to the owners of the machines. A government check can partially redistribute that, but partially is not the same as a penthouse for everyone. The most uncomfortable dimension of this story is not the economics, it is the psychology. Musk acknowledged it himself, in a rare moment of complexity. If you actually get all the stuff you want, is that actually the future you want? Because it means that your job won't matter. Human beings are not merely consumers of goods and services. Work, the act of contributing, of building something, of being needed, is bound up in identity and meaning. A world of material abundance is not automatically a world of human flourishing. The transition to that world, however long it takes, will be defined not just by economics, but by purpose, by the question of what people do when machines do everything. What is not deniable is this: the forces Musk is describing are real, they are accelerating, and they are already reshaping the economy you live in right now. The AI eliminating white-collar jobs today is the same AI Musk says will eventually build you a penthouse. The robot replacing a factory worker this year is the first generation of the machines he says will end scarcity. The abundance may be coming. The question is whether the world between here and there, the world of displacement, of wealth concentration, of political upheaval, of meaning, crisis, is one we are prepared to survive. Elon Musk posted a vision of the future and got 68 million views. The future he is describing will affect every single one of them. The only question left is whether it benefits all of them or only some.
Thanks for watching Macro Explainer. Subscribe for more clear breakdowns.